Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the experiences of the earlier, if not the first, waves of mass migration to the West. All engineered and orchestrated by the globalists without the consent of the local Western populations. But to have a look at those first waves of immigrants, mostly from the third world, if not nearly all of them, and have a look at their experiences from the time they first arrived and how different their lives became once, say, the Australian government in this case started forcing or enforcing race and gender quotas, affirmative action hiring. Now, I had the opportunity to talk to a few people from a third world country that today are pushing, well, they'd probably be 50, if not early 50s, but 25 years ago, they were in their early 20s and they'd come from third world countries. So this particular one I'm thinking of now is a woman. I think she's 52 now. And she came as a 23-year-old from a third world Asian country. And her father was quite influential. He was like the deputy mayor in some corrupt tin pot banana republic city, and there was a university in that city. So he made sure that the university there gave his daughter an engineering degree. Now, the attitude at the time in these third world countries, and probably still today, is that an engineering degree is equivalent really to a visa to go to a first world country. So the engineering profession was deemed as that's the equivalent of getting a visa. You get an engineering degree and you can go to any Western country you want, or so it's perceived that way. So they just bribe. And so now this girl, girl at the time anyway, she attended university and went through it. A lot of it she didn't really understand. And bear in mind the quality of engineering degrees in these third world countries is leaves a lot to be desired, and they tell me the standard has increased over the last 10 years or so, but gee, I doubt it. But anyway, so she arrives in one of that earlier waves of mass migration. She arrives in Australia with her engineering degree. Now she talks about how incredibly difficult it was in the early days when she came, the first year or two. Nobody want to hire Asian girl. And so she says that no one, her degree was treated as being, having as much value as toilet paper. And her English was very poor, if not minimal. She did like a year of English at high school or something, but that was it. And so the only job she could get was things like, a cleaner or a floor sweeper or those sorts of jobs. Now, the government back then was telling us the only migrants that'll be coming in, they won't be peasants. No, they'll be all doctors and lawyers and engineers. They'll speak excellent English. They're coming to Australia because we need those skills. They are incredibly highly skilled. Even though they come from third world shitholes, they are incredibly skilled, way more skilled than any of the people in Australia, the white people. And we need those skills to grow the economy. The economy will just die without all these illiterate third world fucking peasants. I mean, don't you know that, you damn racist fucking Hitler? So in came these people. Now when she left this third world country, her sort of objective, and if you like, her from the village and the town and the area, and was to bring over as many relatives as she could, so to get to Australia, get citizenship or residency or whatever, and then bring over as many relatives, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the third cousins, the whole thing, which is very much the third world sort of shtick. So, but when she got here, she realised how tough it was. She was having to compete with the local population. So she's having to, when she applied for a job, she was having to compete with people that did have local qualifications that were deemed as legitimate and worthy, who spoke better English, who could read and write English, and she was really really sort of minimal on all of that. So, so she said she just couldn't compete with these people. They were just better in every department. And she remembers, as indeed I do, the adverts that would go around at the time, even from government, was your command of verbal, written, and spoken, and then English must be exemplary, and so on. So this effectively cut out this requirement to speak good quality English and to have locally recognised qualifications from colleges and universities and so on. That effectively cut out all of these third world people who were coming in. All they could do was pick fruit and push a broom, which is what she did. So she was pretty much ready to give up on the idea. It's just too tough. She just couldn't compete, as she admits herself. And so it would take her a long time to get that good quality English, spoken, written, and reading and writing English and all that sort of stuff. It would take her a long time, assuming she could even afford it, to get qualifications that will be recognised in Australia or the West. So she was on the verge of giving up, and she was writing to her relatives and people back in the third world country, saying, "Hey, it's really tough here. It's a rich country and it sounds good, but there's no way we can compete with the local people here for the jobs." So that was her state of mind back. And if that had stayed, the migration may have been much lower, and it may have been a much higher quality migrant who was coming over, because it was okay if you want to migrate from another European country or another first world country, or for that matter, an English-speaking country. But that isn't where the globalists wanted to move people. They didn't want to move white country to white country or English-speaking to English. They didn't want that. They wanted to move brown and black illiterate peasants from the third world into the West. That was always the globalist plan, always from day one. It still is today. So at around the time she was ready to sort of throw her hands up in the air and give up and go back to, at least she had the comfort of her family and relatives and everything around her. And she came from, I suppose you'd call middle class, I guess, or even well-to-do where she came from. So she might as well go back, and then she wouldn't have to be a cleaner or a fruit picker anymore. But about that time, the state and federal governments in Australia started bringing in these affirmative action quotas, race and gender quotas. You had to have so many brown and black people and so on. And she, at her own admission, she says this changed things overnight. No longer did she have to compete with the better qualified local people. These better qualified people would be passed over, indeed ignored, in favour of race and gender quotas. And she had both. She had a, she was brown, didn't speak English as a first language, and was a woman. So she could tick 3 affirmative action sort of boxes there. So she suddenly found it very easy to get work. And again, it was overnight, and she hasn't been unemployed a day since. And if anybody, wherever she works, when anyone's thinking of getting rid of her, then she can always slap them with a racism lawsuit or something like that. So she's sort of quite happy now. She's able to bring over a lot of relatives from the third world country. They can all get government benefits and so on. So she's very pleased with how it all turned out. But it was interesting how she was on the verge of giving up, and other people that she knew from other migrants were also on the verge of giving up, saying, "Wow, it's just too tough. We can't play in this league." But then the Western governments, obviously under the direction of the globalist central command, suddenly changed the rules so that local white people will be refused employment in favour of unqualified black and brown people, and in this case women. So now on top of that, she can have access to, and I didn't really know about this, but the way she explained, she can have access, because she's a migrant and again doesn't speak English and female, she can have access to free education. So this non-existent engineering degree she had, which was purchased by her father bribing the university, she's able now to, or was able, she's done it, able to get like a bridging course from a local university, which again, given she's brown and female and all that sort of stuff, there's no rigor in the test, so she's now a fully qualified engineer by Western standard, or she's got the bit of paper anyway, and can swan around saying, "Hey, I'm an electrical engineer," when it's quite absurd. She wouldn't know one end of the power cord from the other. So, but that just gives you an idea. And I just wanted to cover that go through that as an indication of just how insane it all is, how standards and merit and everything, and I mean, it's absurd, get thrown out the window in favour of this perception of equity, race and gender equity, and but without the affirmative action to artificially, deny white people employment in a white country. Without that, then these people wouldn't have made it. Now, maybe they'd have stayed, doing cleaner jobs and so on, and maybe they'd have had children here, and maybe those children would have gone on to do bigger things. But she comes from a country that I've been to a number of times, third world country, and there's a small rich elite there, as there always is in these places. And so I've been to meet them, and they once you get outside of the rich people and their hangers-on and flunkies, who also do sort of okay in these sort of places. I mean, these sort of places, like an income of $10,000 a year, you are doing very nicely, thank you. These people, when they come to the West, they've got high expectations of how they're going to show us all how it's done, and then they realise they just cannot compete. So the only way they can compete is through these artificial means of race and gender quotas. So the globalists came to the rescue at just the right moment. Otherwise, a lot of these folks would have packed up and gone back to where they came from. But there's the standards in these places. When I visited there, the standards in these places is very low. There's the place it's a basket case. What can I say? And very corrupt and the like. So and they bring all these habits with them of laziness, corruption, and so on. So that's my take on that. I've spoken to some other people that pretty much say the same thing, but I hadn't done a video from the perspective, or from their perspective, and I hadn't realised how difficult it was for those first groups of third world peasants that the globalists pushed over here. How difficult it was for them to get anywhere, and only race and gender quotas saved them from, as I say, packing up and going home. You've been a Tassist, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.